Hey, Pioneers! Welcome to episode number 461. Today we are talking about herbal wisdom, our best remedies and why they work. And this is our second edition of the Homestead Kitchen Roundtable, which is quickly becoming one of my favorites. And from the feedback we've gotten from many of you, you guys are loving this as well. So today we're going to just be diving straight into what our go-to favorite herbal remedies are. And we're also going to be talking about what to do when you have family members who maybe aren't as sold on those herbal remedies as you are. So lots of fun discussions today, a ton of takeaways, and you'll even see where each one of us got some inspiration from the other on some new herbal remedies to try, as well as new ways to get those herbal remedies into our systems, into that of our loved ones. So I think you're really going to enjoy today's episode. Well, welcome back to the Homestead Kitchen Roundtable. Today, I'm actually really excited because I don't know the answer for all four of you on this one. But when it comes to herbs and natural remedies, I'm curious if you guys grew up with that. Like, is that something that your parents did, or is it something that you were introduced to later in life? So, Sophia, I'm going to go with you first.
I grew up with all of the stinky things. So, whether that's fermentation or any of the herbs, I mean, you name it. And it all goes back to how my grandpa lived. Like, we had these herbal steams every time we got cold, and all sorts of different ointments that smelled so bad. But yeah, I grew up with it.
Okay. Michelle?
I did not grow up with it. I was not, oh gosh, I didn't start using it until much later. It wasn't until we did the herbal challenge in Pioneering Today Academy that I actually started using any herbal remedies. So yeah, so I'm very, very new to it.
Oh, I don't think I knew that. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, Rachel?
Yeah, I was like Sophia. It was like the herbal steam over, the hot water and all the herbs, and a tea with honey and lemon and, little hot toddy sometimes. Whatever it took. The mustard plaster that, my Oma would do that kind of stuff. Yeah, because it's, that's what they had used. That's all they had available at times. So.
Yeah, I think we've learned that the Jewish and the Asian cultures are pretty similar.
Yeah, that is so interesting. So, I mean, we did a lot of stuff homestead. Like, we didn't have health insurance growing up. So going to the doctor was really, really rare. We hardly ever went to the doctor because it was out of pocket. But interestingly, my mom, we didn't hardly use any herbal remedies. Like, she would make some tea with some honey, maybe and a little bit of lemon, but no mustard plasters, really no really herbal remedies, natural remedies. I mean, we ate pretty clean out of necessity, which is great, but there was no herbal remedy background at all, which is really fascinating because I found a newspaper article on my dad's grandma, so my great grandma, and back in North Carolina, she was one of the most renowned natural healers in their gap, in their little holler area. So my grandmother must have known some of that, but my dad, I don't know, maybe it's because my mom was more of the caretaker. Dad was working outside in really long hours. None of that translated down.
But
so
I think it's
very
all
interesting.
It's the convenience part too. I mean, ours, because it was my grandparents that lived next door, and it was always Jewish penicillin, matzo ball soup. Whenever you're sick, that's what you eat, which was just chicken stock that we made. But that they did more with my mom when she was a kid, and there was still some when I was a kid, but then there was the convenience of what you could buy at the store too, that there was kind of that dichotomy of which do you use, which is better, do you believe all the hype, do you not? So it was kind of this intermingled, which is the best thing to do.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, convenience definitely works its way in, and I have to say, marketing started to have influence then. We didn't get television with commercials that weren't snow until I was probably about 12. But then, you would have, it's give your kids Tylenol, especially the red cherry kind. there was a lot of marketing that even started to influence. I'm a kid of the 80s, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so now, though, all of us use herbal remedies. And it was really fascinating. I was just going back through and seeing like all of the herbs that I have now, even in comparison to like 6 years ago. And it is really expanded. So I'm super curious now, everybody's kind of like favorite go-tos. And I know most of us probably have some specifics for like very specific things, but like, you know, like just kind of your overall favorite go-tos that you just time and time again reach for. Should we just keep the order the same? Sophia, you just
I
get to
think
go in
so.
the hot seat every time.
Okay, well, I just conveniently had this. But if you've heard of tiger balm before, I think now it's like widely accepted and it's at Whole Foods even. But there's petroleum jelly and paraffin wax in them. So we actually make our own at home, where honestly, I use this for everything. My mom will use it if she has any neck pains. I'll use it for my once a month, time. But also this is the stuff we use in lieu of like vapor rub. If we're any of us are feeling a little something in the throat or feeling down, we'll rub it on our chest, rub it on our feet before bed, put some socks over it, and it really works. So it's like our organic tiger rub.
I love that. We used to sell the tiger balm in the pharmacy. Like we had people came in and asked for it by name. And so then we ordered it in. So and I've been out of pharmacy for quite a while, but yeah, a lot of people are actually very familiar with it now.
Yeah.
But to your point, commercially made, unfortunately, it's got some of those not so desirable ingredients, even though it does have herbal properties in it. Once you go commercial, they tend to go with the mass easy route. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Cheaper.
Yeah. Okay. Is that your one and only favorite or main go-to? Do you have a second runner-up? Or that's it?
That's my main go-to. Okay. I would say it solves like 80% of the problems around here.
I like it.
Okay. So for me, I am allergic to honey and beeswax. So I can't have anything that has honey in it. So like if I make elderberry syrup, I can't use honey in that. Which also means I can't make like salves and stuff like that. And I haven't taken the time to try to make something that's an alternative to beeswax. So right now my go-tos are just the tinctures. Like if I feel like I'm starting to come down with something, I'll grab the First Signs tincture from the Academy. So I would say that's my go-to.
Yeah. I think it's Canuba wax. I was doing some research on that. Yeah. I haven't used it either yet, but I was looking at some alternatives.
Yeah.
Rachel?
Elderberry syrup. I take it every day. And that's, I always change it a little every time, a little different flavor here, rose hips or orange or this or that, but I always have elderberry syrup in the fridge and in the freezer. And since I'm at this lovely age of 50, all the perimenopause stuff too, I have to say the tinctures for sleep that, have the herbs that help with that, with skullcap, valerian, that saves my life. I can actually get sleep. And like Soph was saying, the salves too, and we have several different ones in the Academy and I make all of them and we all use them in the family. And I've converted my husband. He's like, wow, this works better than Neosporin. Yeah, it does, honey. Guess what? Okay. So I think for me that the big ones is the elderberry syrup and, tinctures for sleep. And Tulsi tincture just to help with calm, mellow.
Yeah. I don't know about you guys, but like it's the husband test at my house. Like if we're changing food, like from a processed or like store-bought option to a homemade one, like I think he is pickier palated than the kids. Like if he approves it, then we're good to go. But it's the same thing with the herbal medicine. At first he was pretty skeptic and then he tried some of them and he was like, oh my gosh, like really impressed. So now him and the kids reach for them. But I have to say, I think he was my bigger critic or more skeptical than the kids.
Yes, I totally agree. And now where's that stuff, that schmear, that stuff you made me take? Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Yeah, I'm with you, Michelle, when it comes to like starting to feel like some type of cold or like flu symptom, like, when you're first just feeling like you're coming down with something, the First Science tincture, that is my absolute first go-to. In fact, I don't even travel without it now. Which you can get through, even if you're not checking your bag on your carry-on. If you take the small, I take it with me. I won't even travel without it. It's one of my have to have all the time. But then I have to say, Rachel, I'm with you on the valerian and the Chinese skullcap, which the Chinese skullcap is in the First Science tincture. But valerian, and interestingly, for sleep, definitely can help with that. But Sophie, back to talking about like the topical stuff. And Michelle, when you were talking about tinctures, I have started using a combination tincture that has valerian in it, actually for muscle spasm or like muscle tightness. And I just use the tincture and I apply the tincture topically. And it is fascinating how well it works. And I had never heard of applying tinctures topically, because typically we think of, everything I had read and used was on internal. But it was with Doc Jones, we did a joint workshop together here at the farm stay. And it was like just this brief in passing. And he was talking about using tinctures topically. And I'm like, wait, hold up. Obviously not on a wound, because alcohol is going to sting like the dickens. So no scrapes or anything like that. But if it's like just muscle, bruise, etc., where there's no broken skin, it is fascinating how well it works. So I just get one of the little, sprayer things and put it on top instead of the tincture dropper, and then just spray it on and then just kind of rub it in. Oh my goodness. It works really, really well. I mean, I still use salves for different things and ointments, but like, especially for like muscle spasm or tension, so that's my other one. I guess I have two, but they're both tinctures. I just use them differently.
Well, I would definitely prefer that. Sometimes the tinctures are just too strong and I'm like put off by it. But if I could just spray it on, is that the valerian root, the valerian tincture that you put on for the muscle spasms? Or is it
it's a combination. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. It's a combination, and it's specifically for like muscle like when your muscles get tight and spasmed and they just don't when they're just like almost like they're in that like flexed position, even though it's not like a muscle you normally would flex. And I keep rubbing my neck because it's my sternomastoid on my left side. I think it's still triggered from when I had the tumor and there was nerve issues. Like it just doesn't want to settle down. And so I spray it almost every night. And will immediately just like it releases it, and then it will relax enough I can go to sleep and not have issue. But it's valerian, cramp bark, and I think lobelia, but I would have to double check on that. So in the show notes for you guys who are listening to this, I'll put a link in the show notes with the exact that it's in that combination, because I may be recalling it incorrect on the lobelia part, but it definitely is valerian as one of the first ingredients in it. Yeah.
No, and topically, I was having trouble with plantar fasciitis in my foot. Called up our friends at Homegrown Herbalist, and sure enough, pine, and I think it's hops. I have to go look, but I put them together in a spray and just spray it on my foot every morning, and it's helped greatly.
Yeah, hops is interesting. Actually, I'm learning more about hops. It's supposed to be a very good painkiller. Actually, yeah.
And I didn't know that about hops.
Well, you think about beer, right? I guess it kills pain.
Kills the pain.
Creates more. But yeah, and that's typically what I always thought of with hops is like, oh, it's just an ingredient, to make beer, but it actually has quite a few herbal properties, which is really interesting.
Okay, so I know Rachel and Melissa, you both talked about how your families, it took a little bit to get them converted over. Sophia, I don't know how it is with you, but my family, I cannot. They will not take it. Like they have taken some, and then they just don't like the flavor, so they just refuse to take it. And I can't get them converted. So I'm the one taking it.
Have you tried like with tinctures in water or tea?
Yes. They absolutely refuse to do it. It's so frustrating.
Got a bunch of stubborn ones.
Yeah.
Have you tried it as a glycerite tincture? It's not necessarily as strong for medicinal properties, obviously, as alcohol based, but glycerin is sweet. It is it's a different palate, right?
Yeah. No, I haven't tried that. Maybe I should.
Yeah. What about elderberry syrup? Are they like on that too? Because you can make that sweet.
No, they don't like it.
Is it more psychological than it is?
No, they just don't like
They-
the flavor.
Oh.
Like the first time I made elderberry syrup, it had a lot of cinnamon in it,
Mhm.
and I think it had something else in it, and they just did not like it, and they don't want to do it again, even if I've changed the recipe. Nope.
Okay,
Well,
have you tried putting it into like a food dish?
Make it into salad dressing.
I've not tried that.
Actually, you know what? That could be a really good meatball sauce. Like
It
on
could.
meatloaf or
Ooh.
meatballs, like you could actually do like a sweet and sour with the elderberry or just like a glaze. And that could be your, ooh, okay. I'm actually going to try that because I was going to make meatballs this week. I never thought about using the elderberry syrup in this sauce. But I mean, my family will take the elderberry syrup, but that's a great way to just incorporate it. And when you're making the sauce, like I just put mine at the end and it just gets, it just gets a little bit warm. It doesn't really matter with the elderberry syrup because you're cooking elderberry anyways. But like even the raw honey that I put in mine, I know you can't use raw honey, Michelle, or honey at all. But being it's just getting warmed, like it would still keep the honey in its raw state too. Okay. Hey, I got a new go-to now. Thanks for that.
Or you could make a glaze for cake. Very, very glazed for cake if they like sweets.
Maybe.
That's hard. It's a tough one, but you're doing it for yourself, and maybe as they see it working for you, then maybe they'll come around.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. How about you, Sophia? All right.
Well,
Does your family embrace it pretty well?
Kind of the same thing. We're multi-generational, so now the grandkids of the kids are growing up with it from grandma. But my mom's gotten better because with reishi, she loves reishi tea, and if she makes it and she cooks it on the stove over and over again, I kind of like it doesn't really do much for me. Like she's like, here, drink a cup, and I'm like, no, I'm okay. But now she's been putting it into the pho and not telling me, and I can't taste it. So we actually have like reishi pho, and everybody's drinking it. She's like, that's how I get everybody to drink it. That's why I asked you, Michelle, can you put it in
Good
your
for her.
I like that idea.
Yeah, you can actually put, especially roots, like a lot of herbs in broth.
Yeah.
And to your point, like when you're cooking them in
Yeah.
a soup or it's just a broth or even a sauce, like you still get the medicinal benefits, but it's not necessarily that flavor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That might be your sneaky.
Oh,
It
so
is.
yeah, I do have to make some broth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you should try it, Michelle.
Yeah.
We
I will.
also have jujubes that I put in the Nourishing Aging Kitchen for the pho. So the jujubes are they're a Chinese apple that when you dry them, you can put them in your broth, and it's not like a date, but it sweetens up your food, but it's also very medicinal too. And same thing with goji berries. We'll just put them into the pho, and then you can scoop them out as if it was a spice. But I mean, it's really good for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I bet you could do for the vitamin C part and rose hips. Like I'm thinking of things that like grow really
Yeah.
naturally in
Yeah.
our area and climate. And rose hips are, I've got rose hips everywhere. And they don't really have a strong, I don't think anyways, as tea. Like I don't think rose hips really have a super strong flavor. It's kind of light. So like in a broth, I don't even think that you would taste it, but it would definitely infuse in there and increase it. Okay, this is fun. So we're all going to make all of these. Who knew this was going to be an herbal medicinal? Let's hide it in our food cooking episode. But here we are.
And if you do a little bit every so often, you might not need to have to use the strong tinctures. I mean, there's a time and place for it all, but maybe just overall well-being, infuse it in your food.
Yes.
Yeah. And even the tinctures, even if you put it in a good amount of water, so you don't even notice the taste. That's how I've gotten it through people here. So
yeah, I have to drink it diluted. Clay,
Same.
he just straight shots it, and I'm like, he just takes the tea, and I'm like, I'm just like, wow. Like he's like, I'd rather just get it over with. I'm like,
I'm with Clay. I just take it and put it in the cap and done.
that's impressive. I am like such a wimp. I'm like, let me have a full 12 ounces of water, please.
Yeah. Tim's the same
Yes.
too. He used to do oregano oil, or we used to all do it with orange juice. And now he's just like, screw that. Just take the whole dropper full of it. Nothing burns.
Yeah.
That's spicy.
but he's fine the next day. So it works.
It works. Yeah.
That's
Ooh.
amazing.
Yeah. Okay, well, on the subject of growing herbs, because rose hips is one that grows really easily here. I mean, we've got like wild rose hips, and then I cultivate actual medicinal varieties that produce the really nice big fat rose hips. But the more I use herbs, the more I want to grow them myself. Like I want to close that loop. I want to know how they're grown, and I want to reduce my costs. And I want to just know like, oh, I can grow these and they'll forever be at my fingertips because they're on my land, on my property. Like I don't have to worry about trying to source them or fluctuating, herb prices, that type of thing. So for this year, either are you going to try to grow a new medicinal herb, or like what is your favorite one to grow?
I guess I'm up first. So for me, it's I don't know if you've heard of perilla before.
No.
It's
Yes.
it comes in many different varieties.
Oh, it's pretty too.
It is pretty. It's very aromatic, and apparently it's like shiso. If you've had shiso at a I'm sure you've had it. Like if you go to a sushi restaurant and they have like that one green leaf, that's the shiso or the perilla leaf, and it's very medicinal. It's got like vitamin A, C, E in there. From what I hear, it does grow natively wild, but it doesn't taste like the Asian one that we grow. And my mom swears by this. Like, she's like, if you're ever feeling down, if you ever feel like, you don't have enough energy, she says she'll just make she'll make a tea from a bunch of the perilla leaves, and it just wakes you up. But we use it for everything. We'll put it in our spring rolls. We'll make the tea out of it. Put it in your, like a Chinese chicken salad, chop that up and put it in there. And it actually grows pretty prolifically around here, and at least in California that I know. So it would work well in a warmer climate.
Oh, interesting. What is the flavor profile of it? Does it have one much, or?
It's like, how mint has that pungent, like very strong smell. It is like that, but almost like a clove or an anise smell to it. It's very hard to describe. It's very distinct and unique on its own. But you know what? When we grow it, I'll dry some up and send it over to you.
I'm intrigued. Okay, and then, Rachel, I think you said it was really pretty. So what does it look like? Is it
the one I've grown
or?
Was from Baker Creek, and it had a purple tint. Is that the one you grow, Sophie?
Yes. So I have two. I have one that's green on both sides, and one that's purple on one side, and three then, and green on the other side. And then I have one that's purple on both sides.
So it's the leaf that we're talking about with the color. Okay.
Right. And it also works really well for a bouquet too. You just add it as filler leaves, and it looks and it smells really good.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
now I need to grow the other two also.
I haven't seen them in seeds, I think, because they're like specifically Asian. So when I get it going here.
Okay. You seed save girl.
Is it perennial or annual?
It is perennial. Yep.
Okay. So you could send like a root cutting.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'd like to be on the list, please.
Yes. No October.
Fabulous. Okay, Michelle, how about you?
I actually don't have any plans to really add much because I'm putting them in an orchard this year, so that's my big focus. Last year, I did make some room in my front flower bed, which is right outside my front door, so it's really close to the kitchen. So I'm trying to make sure my culinary herbs grow well, and and some of those you can use medicinally too, like Sophia mentioned oregano earlier. So right now that's my focus, is making sure that those thrive, get in my orchard, and then I can next year focus on something else.
Can expand out. Yeah. Okay, Rachel, Miss Gardener extraordinaire.
I have to go get the box. There's a bunch of new ones I've grown this year. There were different varieties of stuff I've grown before, but more varieties. I love holy basil and, Tulsi for tea. So I think I have 4 different varieties of that I'm trying that are different this year than what I've grown before, because I never realized there were so many varieties. But yeah, there's a lot of different stuff. Horseradish, I haven't grown in a couple of years just because it overtook and I ripped it all out. So I may go there, I may not. just because it can be such a thug. And then I had burdock growing, and they looked great because I wanted the root. And bless my brother's heart, growing up on the farm, we go out every weekend and pull burdock from the fields, which Melissa, you too.
Mm-hmm.
And he was over one day and walked back by the barn, and he comes back and he's like, Sissy, why do you have burdock growing? I ripped it out.
Oh, bless his heart. He thought he was being helpful.
And I said, how long ago did you rip it out? Oh, like 2 hours ago. And it was like a 90-degree day. So there was no saving them. But yeah, I'm going to start rhubarb. I can't even speak. Burdock again, just because I like burdock root. So,
yeah. Well,
and tell him, leave it alone. I'm cutting it off. I won't let it go to seed. It just about gave him heart failure. It took him back to our childhood.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is when you're harvesting it for the root, you harvest it the first year before it produces its seed. So if you stay up, this is the caveat, obviously.
Yeah, that's it.
Preaching to myself. If you stay up and you're always harvesting the root in the first year before it could go to seed and create all of its lovely havoc, it's such a great proliferator. Then you don't have the problem and you have the root. It's just catching it, making sure it's all harvested beforehand. But yes, we were. Yeah.
Bless his heart. He pulled it when it was still pretty small to harvest the root, but
Oh,
he just saw the leaf and that was it. But yeah, that is the thing. It can proliferate very well. Lemon balm I have all over the property, which I don't mind it. At least it comes up easy.
Yeah. And it smells so good. I just love the smell of lemon balm. Yeah. It's a great herb. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. This year I am actually putting in more arnica. I had not sourced arnica because I had a back stock of it until recently, and it's like over $64 an ounce. And I'm like, what for arnica? I mean, it is pretty. It's like a little bright little yellow flower. So I'm putting in more arnica so that I've got my own source. Even I have a few plants. So I'm putting in more arnica this year. And then I'm really excited because this is the year that the root will be big enough to harvest, but it's on my Chinese school cap. And so I'm super excited because it takes like 3 years before that root's big enough that you can harvest. But I think I'm going to have to put more plants in because I realized I kind of planted it when I planted it with the thought of I'm harvesting all of these. And I didn't think far enough ahead that ideally you're planting one each year so that you've got the succession years and that you've always got this next supply. Next year I can harvest this. So this year I'm going to start with correct succession planting so that I always have some coming in. So it's not really a new one. I didn't plan that out so hot when I put it in.
If only the ones we wanted like that would grow like the nettles and the Oregon grape and lemon balm, it would be delightful.
Oh, Oregon grape. I was paying premium for that in California.
Oh, girl, don't you ever do that. Melissa and I have enough to make the world go round.
I could send you bucketful. That actually, and I don't have to grow it, but usnea just drips from the trees here. And so it's another one of my new favorites and darlings, but I don't have to cultivate it, which may be why it's one of my favorites, but actually it's a really cool herb. But that I can always send to because it just grows magnificently well in our rainy Pacific Northwest.
And dandelion.
Your usnea is beautiful. It's like a bearded usnea. Ours is kind of shriveled,
like the tuft, kind of more like the little tuft kind.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's very, it's almost ethereal, because it can get some of the strands. I'm actually looking at one of the trees in our back pasture. I mean, those strands, some of them they've got to be over 20 feet long. Some of the really, really long, and so it's so pretty as it fills out the whole tree. It almost looks like this dripping garland, especially this time of year before the leaves have come out. So yeah. Okay. Well, ladies, this was fun. I will be chatting to you way before next month, but we will be back next month. And so I look forward to hearing all of our conversations then.
All right.
We've got lots of links to some of those recipes that we talked about today that are on the website. So for all of the resources, go to melissaknorris.com/4 461, just numerical 461, because this is episode number 461. And if you enjoyed today's episode, I would be so appreciative if you share it with a friend. Really, the only way that podcasts grow is by word of mouth, and that is by sharing it with somebody. So, someone who you know could use some more herbal remedies in their life, please do share this with them. And I look forward to being back here with you next week. Blessings and mason jars for now, my friends.